Why are beef prices so high? This past summer, I bought 4 beef tenderloins at the local grocery store. The cost was over $110. The person behind the counter walked me to the front of the store and watched me pay for them. Beef and cattle prices are at historical highs. These high prices have made media headlines and attracted government attention. The beef market is unique for 4 main reasons. First, beef demand is inelastic. A small change in supply results in a large change in price. People eat the same amount of beef every month, regardless of the price. It's important to know that alternate sources of meat, mainly chicken and pork, have little influence on beef demand. Plant-based proteins will not and have not significantly decreased or altered beef demand. Secondly, cattle are more than beef. Once an animal moves past a point in the slaughterhouse, all parts of the animal are sold. Nothing is wasted. Cattle are 60% beef, 15% hides, and 25% other products. These other products include soaps, cosmetics, and oils. Nearly 50% of the animal is for a consumer with average to above average income. For example, last year when I was buying a F-150 truck, the leather package for seats was an additional $7,000. Needless to say, I have cloth seats. This leads to the third unique feature of the beef market. A 1% increase in consumer spending equates to a 1% increase in beef demand. Approximately 70% of U.S. GDP is composed of consumer spending. The Dow Jones Industrial Average and live cattle futures have been highly correlated since the 2020 recession. The monetary and fiscal stimulus that occurred during the COVID recession set the beef and cattle markets on course for unprecedented demand. The problem is that cattle producers make production and marketing decisions based on the nearby market environment. Finally, beef or cattle are not like other commodity markets. Let me explain. When corn prices are at lower levels, farmers in North America decrease corn acres, and 5 months later, there is a year-over-year decrease in production. It's not like that with cattle or beef. During the 2020 recession and for the following 3 years, cattle prices were at lower levels and cattle production was not profitable. This caused North American cattle producers to contract the cattle herd. Cattle producers sold heifers instead of breeding them. They also downsized their overall herd to reduce costs. At lower prices, beef production actually increases, which is the opposite of a normal commodity market. Increasing beef production in an inelastic demand environment causes cattle and beef prices to overextend to the downside. Now, when corn prices are at historical highs, farmers in North America increase corn acres, and they increase corn acres in the spring, and 6 months later, there's a year-over-year increase in corn production. When beef and cattle prices are at historical highs, the cattle market moves through a transition. For the first couple years of historical high prices, less beef is produced. Instead of feeding heifers to fatten them for slaughter, cattle producers hold back on heifers and breed them. It takes about 2.5 years for the calves from these heifers to come on the market. Cattle producers hold back on older cows for breeding as well. At high prices, the cow and heifer slaughter decreases so that beef production is lower. Decreasing supply in an inelastic demand environment causes cattle and beef prices to overextend to the upside, beyond normal fundamentals. However, when the calves from the first round of heifer retention come on the market, the cattle market tends to drop sharply. Statistics Canada's July 1st cattle inventory survey showed the first year-over-year increase in heifer retention since COVID. Ranchers and cattle producers are holding back on heifers for breeding. This tells us that beef and cattle markets are nearing the highs. There are a few other factors contributing to historical high beef prices besides cattle fundamentals. If you've shopped at a grocery store lately, prices for many food products are at historical highs. It's not only beef. Consumers need to know that grocery stores sell packaging, not food. The cost of food is a very small portion of the cost of the actual product that's being purchased. Compared to 10 years ago, the US has an additional 20 million people. Canada has an additional 5 million people. The larger population results in stronger demand. This comes at a time when the cattle herd is at a modern-day low. It takes time for supply chains to adjust to the growing population. Cattle and beef production are labor-intense. At the two main beef plants in Alberta, there are over 2,000 employees. Since the 2020 recession, wages have been increasing at 3 to 4% year over year. From the ranch to the beef packer to the retail grocer to the truck driver, the wage bill for beef and food production in general has skyrocketed. Half of the cost for a normal restaurant is labor. You can't expect ranchers to live on wages from 10 years ago. It takes a lot of land to produce beef. Land prices in Western Canada have been increasing at 5 to 8% year over year. Rents and energy have also contributed to higher beef prices. It takes a lot of energy to run a cooler and a beef plant. If you haven't noticed, Canada is a large country, and it's costly to transport feeder cattle from northern Alberta to a feed barn in southern Ontario. Processed beef from Ontario has to be transported to the Maritimes. Transportation and storage are major costs for beef production. Now, beef is often used as a loss leader in grocery stores. For example, when I observed U.S. grocery store flyers for Father's Day last year, some supermarkets were advertising steaks 50% off. Despite the higher cost of cattle and beef, demand has increased temporarily during certain periods because of the marketing and pricing practices of grocers and supermarkets. Even with a tighter cattle and beef supply, don't expect beef or food prices to come down. Food prices will not come down because labor, energy, rents, labeling are costs that are increasing. Most importantly, consumers have higher disposable income. If you want more information about the cattle market, please check out our website and subscribe to the Canadian Feedlot and Cattle Market Analysis.